10 July 1940, during World War II, the skies over southern England erupted in conflict. Germany's Air Force, the Luftwaffe, launched an overwhelming aerial offensive against the United Kingdom, an operation that would soon be remembered as the Battle of Britain. For several months, continuous waves of German bombers and fighter planes targeted British airfields, ports, and major cities, aiming to destroy Britain's defenses and prepare the ground for a full-scale invasion. Despite the overwhelming pressure, the Royal Air Force remained resilient, and by October 1940, Adolf Hitler was forced to abandon his invasion plans. Britain stood firm, its population enduring relentless bombing with courage and determination, transforming the nation into a symbol of resistance against Nazi control in Western Europe. However, not everyone embraced this defiant spirit. While the majority of Britain stood behind Winston Churchill's vow to never surrender, a small number chose a far darker road. Motivated by fascist beliefs or personal ambition, they betrayed their comrades, aided the enemy, and turned against the very country they had once pledged to defend. One of these traitors was Theodore Schurch. In 1936, seeking stable work and a sense of adventure, Schurch applied to enlist as a regular soldier in the British Army. Due to his Swiss nationality, he underwent thorough scrutiny before acceptance. After passing background checks, he joined the Royal Army Service Corps, serving initially as a driver and later as a clerk in Mandatory Palestine and Egypt. World War II officially began on 1 September 1939 with Germany's invasion of Poland. Schurch continued serving in the Middle East as Britain expanded its wartime forces. By 1942, he was stationed in North Africa, still attached to the Royal Army Service Corps. That same year, he was captured at Tobruk, a Libyan port that had become the focal point of intense fighting between British forces and German-led troops under General Erwin Rommel. When Tobruk fell to Axis forces in June 1942, Schurch was taken prisoner along with thousands of others. At that moment, his future could have followed the typical course of a captured soldier, his details sent to the Red Cross, his war spent in captivity. Instead, he disappeared. Following his capture, Schurch began collaborating with Italian intelligence. Intelligent and convincing, he quickly demonstrated his value. He was trained to pose as a fellow British prisoner and secretly report on others. Soon afterward, he also began working for the Abwehr, the German Army's intelligence service. Using the false identity of a Captain Richards, Schurch traveled between Allied prisoner-of-war camps across North Africa and Italy. His task was to gain the trust of captured officers, gather information about military units and plans, and relay it to Axis officials. Witnesses later recalled him as friendly and talkative, someone who blended easily among genuine prisoners. Official charges later revealed that his betrayal began in September 1942. At Tobruk, the 24-year-old Schurch questioned Allied prisoners and passed their responses to the enemy. In Benghazi, a city in eastern Libya, he acquired intelligence on the Long-Range Desert Group, an elite reconnaissance unit operating far behind enemy lines. Over the following months, he crossed front lines multiple times, returning with valuable information about Allied activities. At Homs, a coastal town in western Libya, he collected details about a newly formed British Special Forces unit known as the Special Air Service, or SAS, trained for desert sabotage missions. In February 1943, Schurch encountered Colonel David Sterling, the founder of the SAS, who was then imprisoned in Rome. Still using his alias, Schurch attempted to discover who would replace Sterling as commander. Later that spring, he questioned captured naval officers, seeking intelligence about British ships and operations in the Mediterranean. Each time, he delivered the information to Italian or German intelligence agencies. When Italy surrendered to the Allies in September 1943, the nation changed sides following defeats in North Africa and Sicily. German forces reacted swiftly, seizing control of northern and central Italy, freeing Benito Mussolini from arrest, and reinstalling him as leader of a new fascist state known as the Italian Social Republic. Italian troops were disarmed, intelligence services taken over, and Rome occupied. Many Italian fascists continued working alongside their former Axis allies. Schurch, operating in Rome at the time, adapted quickly and continued his espionage. now under the direct control of the SD, the SS, and Nazi Party's intelligence service. Provided with money, clothing, and forged documents, he was able to move freely through occupied Italy. By 1945, as German power collapsed, Schurch was living in the northern port city of La Spezia, once a hub for Italian naval special forces and Axis espionage. Again posing as a British officer, he attracted the attention of Allied personnel. Agents from the counterintelligence division of the American Office of Strategic Services arrested him. He was sent to Rome and interrogated by Lieutenant James Angleton, who would later rise to prominence in the Central Intelligence Agency. Angleton's 75-page report described Schurch as a skilled and calculating spy. He concluded that the former British soldier had been paid by Italian and German intelligence for years and continued working for the SD until his arrest. According to Angleton, Schurch claimed ideological devotion to fascism, though the American believed he was equally motivated by comfort and the privileges espionage provided. On 28 May 1945, the British Army's Special Investigation Branch formally arrested Schurch on charges of impersonating an officer to obtain military intelligence for the enemy. During interrogation, his mood shifted between resignation and defiance. He told a War Office official that he wished to be treated as a civilian and questioned why authorities were prolonging the agony instead of shooting me right away. He also insisted he owed no loyalty to Britain, arguing that his Swiss citizenship freed him from allegiance. By September 1945, the case was ready for trial and a military court convened in London. Schurch faced 9 counts of treachery under the Treachery Act of 1940 and 1 count of desertion, with each treachery charge carrying a mandatory death sentence. Prosecutors accused him of gathering and transmitting military intelligence at Tobruk, Benghazi, Homs, and Rome between 1942 and 1943. 5 former prisoners of war identified him in court as the man they knew as a Captain Richards, including Lieutenant John Bromage of the Royal Navy, whose submarine HMS Sahib had been sunk off Sicily. Bromage testified that Richards had freely mingled with British officers, warned them about informers, and even joked that he himself might be one. Colonel David Sterling also appeared as a witness through a written statement, confirming that he had been warned of Richard's true identity and therefore provided him only false information. Throughout the proceedings, Schurch displayed the same fascist sympathies that had shaped his youth. He objected to one court officer because he was Jewish, claiming persecution by a Jewish officer in North Africa. His defense lawyer argued that Schurch was weak-minded, poorly educated, and manipulated by his handlers before becoming disillusioned. Schurch himself insisted he had only passed false or already known information to the enemy. The court dismissed his defense. The presiding officer emphasized that Schurch's activities spanned several years and that he had repeatedly referred to our department, identifying himself with Axis intelligence. On 17 September 1945, the verdict, guilty on all 10 counts, was delivered, and the death sentence was confirmed in November. Schurch appealed twice, including a direct petition to the king, but both were rejected. Investigators concluded that although some information he later provided was accurate, it had little operational value. Lieutenant Colonel E.J.B. Cusson of the Special Investigation Branch summarized the government's view. This man's history shows that he has no loyalties to anyone. At 9:00 a.m. on 4 January 1946, the 27-year-old Theodore Schurch walked from his condemned cell to the pale green execution chamber at Pentonville Prison in North London. Moments later, executioner Albert Pierrepoint released the lever, bringing an end to the life of the last person ever executed for treachery in Great Britain.